In the way it drives, as well as in the way that it looks, the four-door, four-seat Rapide has set a new benchmark for Aston Martin. Hand-built, luxuriously appointed and very pretty, it's desirable, expensive and very fast. Wherever you take it, more style per hour is guaranteed. What exactly might the world's most elegant four-door sports car be like? Design it in your mind, or perhaps you'll allow me. A supercar badge, a storming V12 engine, pinpoint handling, and the sleekest possible shape that could disguise comfortable rear space for two and a decent boot. The car I've described is this one, Aston Martin's Rapide, the British brand's first four-door since the Lagonda of the mid-1970s. That car went out of production in 1989, but Aston never gave up thinking about a replacement. Eventually, at the Detroit Auto Show in 2006, we saw the beginnings of one, the Rapide concept. Nominally a four-seater, but in reality little more than a stretched coupe. More work was needed, 4 more years of it in fact, before the designers were able to release the Rapide that we have here. It's still hardly a limo, but it's probably as sensible as any real Aston Martin is ever likely to get. As the company itself points out, this is a sports car first and foremost, with the added bonus of 2 extra doors. A claim we've heard before from cars like Porsche's Panamera and Maserati's Quattroporte. But cars not good enough for typical Rapide buyers with the kind of £150,000 budget they'd normally invest in a Bentley. Now, you already know from just glancing at this car that it's desirable, but is it really that good? Let's find out. Now, proof that this is first and foremost a sports car rather than a luxury saloon is delivered before you've even gone anywhere. Get comfortable behind the wheel and you'll find cabin architecture that's pretty much identical to that of Aston's DB9, complete with focused driving position and competition-style dials. But the clincher comes when you press the little aluminium trimmed block that constitutes the key into the centre of the dash. There's a brief whirring before the venerable hand-built 6-litre V12 fires into life with an angry yowl. Fired with anticipation, you press the big D button on the dash, all Rapides being 6-speed automatics, then momentarily hesitate over the delicious decision as to whether to simply burble away into traffic or allow this car's formidable firepower to hurl you at the horizon like a javelin. With 470 brake horsepower on tap, it certainly promises to be a Rapide in nature as well as in name, and some prolonged stomping on the throttle will see you reach 188 miles an hour before too long. With some nimble use of the magnesium alloy paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, you should be able to reach 60 miles an hour from rest in just 5 seconds, with the 100 miles an hour mark coming up just 5 seconds later, all to the accompaniment of that fabulous soundtrack, enough to leave the uninitiated feeling that they're trapped in a mahogany wardrobe in a thunderstorm. Prodding this sport button to further sharpen throttle response and gear shift action further emphasises aural fireworks that start when the valves open at 3,500 revs and rise in a glorious crescendo to 5,000 revs as you ping up and down the gearbox just to hear those sharp barks of revs. But this is no mere muscle car, as you realise the first time you pointed at a twisting country road. For a start, the Rapide is beautifully balanced, with rear-wheel drive matched to an engine pushed as far rearwards as it will go in terms of reaching the perfect weight distribution, a near perfect 51 to 49 if you're interested. But it's this car's clever adaptive suspension system that's most responsible for this car's chameleon-like ability to morph from silky smooth GT to gutsy sports coupe in the blink of an eye. Ease off and it relaxes the suspension settings to improve comfort. Press on and everything gets more taut and responsive. To keep things that way, you've depressed this button down here with its little damper sign, the sport setting for the suspension. Now, so firm is the resulting ride that some may feel that it's best suited only for racetrack use, though I actually found it quite livable with on challenging roads. Either way, if you do venture onto a racetrack, you'll be glad of the DSC track setting, which loosens up the stability control to let the rear tyres slip just a little. And on road or track, you'll appreciate the effort that the British engineers have put into the surprisingly responsive steering, the limited slip differential to help you through tight corners, and the prodigious grip from the bespoke Bridgestone tyres on their 20-inch wheels. And you'll be thankful for the dual cast brake discs fashioned from aluminium and cast iron and claimed to be more resistant to the kind of high-speed track work fading that has historically afflicted Astons of this kind. The Rapide is breathtakingly elegant in a way that you think would be impossible were it to be practical in any meaningful way. From the front, it sticks very much to established Aston Martin design themes, first seen on the Vanquish and since delivered by the DB9, the DBS and Virage models. Get up close and beautiful detailing becomes evident, from the double-deck front grille to the light tube side lights that line the edge of the headlamp clusters, right through to dramatic vents that sit behind the front wheel arch, while the extended lines along the coachwork deliver the long, low appearance that the stylists were clearly aiming at. All in all, it's a much more elegant solution to the problem of how to transport 4 adults and their luggage in a sporting-looking car than that delivered by less exclusive four-door coupes like the Mercedes CLS or the Porsche Panamera. But you'll be wanting to know the answer to the question everybody asks about this car. Is it really a proper four-seater? Well, the answer is yes. But it's a qualified one, and to understand why, you need to understand what this car is made of. Aluminium, with a torsional stiffness better suited to 2 doors rather than to 4. To maintain it and keep those flowing lines in proportion, designer Marek Reichman has had to keep these rear doors on the small side, but in compensation, they are undoubtedly rather clever. They use a swan wing design that features scissor hinges that enable them to open up and out at an angle of 12 degrees, as well as outwards to an angle of 70 degrees. The whole process designed to protect the 9 coats of paint applied to the Rapide's metalwork from high curbs and verges, and of course to aid more dignified entry and exit, though ladies with skirts ending above the knee may find that to be rather of a challenge. You do, after all, have to negotiate a high, wide sill if you're to make it to one of the individually sculpted sports seats that are themselves separated by an equally high, wide centre console, though the whole process is aided by this lovely leather grab strap with its metallic end. Now, once here, it's all very snug. Too snug perhaps if you're over 6 foot in height and sat behind a front seat occupant of similar size. But for me it's just about okay, and certainly fine for the kind of shorter journeys and airport hops that Aston say this rear compartment was really designed for. To be fair, there isn't the kind of claustrophobia here you might expect, thanks to race-style front seats that taper towards the headrests to give rear passengers a superb view of the road ahead. The attention to detail is exquisite thanks to hand-stitched leather and iridium silver detailing. The laminated windows even automatically rise into their frames at high speed to further improve refinement, while each rear seat passenger has their own individual air conditioning system to further aid comfort. Move to the front, and as you open the driver's door, there's an opportunity to appreciate what Aston Martin calls window choreography. Now, all 4 doors are frameless and feature window panes that meet in the middle, each panel dropping slightly as you pull the door handle before jinking sideways to allow you to enter. Once inside, everything is beautifully finished, from the metallic contra-rotating dial pack and relaxed mood lighting to the familiar Aston mix of soft English leather and cool metal switches. There's no conventional gear stick, just these large P, R, N and D buttons on the centre console. You'll get used to using these, but you may be surprised to find that there are still a few forward buttons scattered around the cabin. Owners coming from Bentley motoring won't be expecting to find indicator stalks from a Fiesta, and the Volvo-sourced sat-nav is a bit out of place too. I do though like the way that the turrets for the Bang & Olufsen stereo system rise out of the corners of the dash when you fire the engine, and the way that the aural signature of the stereo system changes when the rear seat belts are in use, so that the whole car fills with sound, not just the front. Out back, it's a little surprising to find a hatchback rather than a boot, but provision of this fifth door is certainly a useful extra aid to practicality, with 301 litres on offer and this neat pop-up bulkhead divider there to help secure your luggage. There are lovely touches too, like this umbrella that sits in its own holder, and you can extend your luggage space if you're not using the rear seats by pressing the electronic buttons at the edge of each of the sides of the rear compartment, and that will enable the tops of the rear chairs to fold forward and release up to 750 litres of space. Before this car was launched, some commentators and prospective buyers were rather optimistically hoping that Aston would price it against four-door coupes and super saloons in the £80,000 to £100,000 bracket. Cars like Mercedes CLS C63 AMG, Maserati's Quattroporte GTS or Porsche's Panamera Turbo. It was never going to happen. With a brand voted coolest in the world, the British maker was always going to leverage its mark equity and go gunning for the £150,000 bracket, where cars like Bentley's Continental GT Speed and Ferrari's FF provide more fitting opposition. Now technically there's only one Rapide model with 6-litre V12 power and a Touchtronic automatic transmission. But there is a plusher spec option if the standard kit list proves insufficient for your taste. Now that might sound unlikely given that the standard Tally runs to a hard disk satellite navigation system, bi-xenon headlamps, full leather trim with metallic accents, power heated and memory front seats, iPod, Bluetooth and USB connectivity, and a rather stunning Bang & Olufsen BO Sound 1000 watt stereo system. Most though will want to go the whole 9 yards and opt for this plusher version, which features a twin screen rear seat entertainment system with 6-disc DVD player and wireless headphones, plus ventilated front and rear seats, and a bespoke luggage set with colour matched to the interior leather. Looking after the safety side of things, there are seatbelt pre-tensioners and 8 airbags, including head airbags for those in the rear seats. You also get Isofix child seat fitments at the back and the usual electronic systems for braking, stability and traction control you'd expect in a car of this complexity and price. Running costs almost become an irrelevance at this aristocratic end of the car market. This V12 will have a thirst with few equals if asked to continually move nearly 2 tonnes of Rapide around at Mach 10. Owners, of course, will probably be more worried about whether the next service station stocks Beluga caviar. If it doesn't, then the 90.5 litre fuel tank provides a theoretical range of about 300 miles, so they'll have every chance of making it somewhere that does. For the record, the combined fuel consumption figure officially is 19 miles to the gallon, and you'll be paying top band VED taxation charges thanks to a CO2 return of 355 grams per kilometre. Insurance is of course a top of the shop Group 20. Depreciation, yes, will be significant, but will be aided by the appeal of that famous badge. In summary then, yes, finding a production car to run that's costlier than this one would be tricky, but then perhaps that's as it ought to be. This sort of sensational presence and ability ought to be matched by a commensurate admission fee. If aesthetics drive your buying decision, then here your buying decision makes itself. Not many would take issue with the fact that this is the best looking 4-seat car that money can buy. True, it's not particularly spacious in the back, but as long as occupants aren't especially tall, this Rapide will transport them with elegance, refinement and ineffable composure. It's eye-wateringly expensive to run, of course, but then the target market isn't especially cost sensitive. What price elegance? When it comes down to it, the Rapide turns out to be pretty much how you might imagine a 4-door Aston to be. Thunderous V12, handcrafted cabin, elegant but sporting looks. It's a sports car with room for the family rather than an attempt to muscle in on the luxury saloon market, and as such it's very desirable indeed. If a growing family or the advancing years are starting to make your supercar look like more and more of an indulgence, then the Aston Martin Rapide is the sensible alternative. It's not much more sensible, mind, and that's its charm.